Hello, we'll be reading today The Eagle by Alfred Lord Tennyson. Let us read the poem first. He clasped the crag with crooked hands, close to the sun in lonely lands. Ringed with the azure world he stands. Second stanza. The wrinkled sea beneath him crows. He watches from his mountain walls, and like a thunderbolt he falls. Whenever I ask my students what were the birds that initially came to their mind upon reading the eagle, they often give variations of the following list: masculinity, divinity, divine will, power, gracefulness, ferociousness, oppression, aristocracy, royalty, precision. The Eagle is a short poem of 6 lines in 2 stanzas rhyming AAA, BPP by Alfred Lord Tennyson, a Victorian poet. It appears in the Poems and Plays of Alfred Lord Tennyson under the subtitle Fragments. Despite its brevity, the Eagle is just 6 lines. It is a poem that lends itself to multiple layers of reading. The third-person limited poetic persona describes the activities of the eagle without giving the reader any insight into the workings of the eagle's mind or the mindset of the wrinkled sea. Looking at the form of the poem and the techniques used, the 2 triplets of the poem consist of 2 coordinate clauses. In the poem, in the first stanza, the poetic persona observes an eagle up on a mountain top from somewhere far below. In the second stanza, he sees the bird from a higher elevation as indicated by the description of the wrinkledness of the sea and the use of the term fall to describe the movement of the eagle. The poetic persona sees the eagle observing the sea below him from his eyrie, and he compares the speed at which the mighty bird swoops down from its perch when it sees the wrinkled sea crawling beneath him to a thunderbolt striking a hapless target. The comparison of the sudden downward movement of the eagle to a thunderstrike is technically called a simile. The word strike indicates not only the devastation both the thunderbolt and the bird are capable of, but also of the suddenness of it. Looking at the use of the verb forms and the tenses in the poem, clasps, stands, crows, falls are action verbs that denote movement, power, and loss of power. The use of the present simple for verbs in the poem can be taken as an implication of the fact that the bird does what he does out of habit. He's doing what he's designed for. All the movement of the eagle are tried and tested. Therefore, there is no awkwardness in any of them. One move naturally flows into the next with such powerful grace. At the same time, the use of the present simple describes all the activities of the poem, gives a sense of immediacy and liveliness to what is going on, making it timeless despite the passage of time. The poet uses the third person's personal pronouns, he and him, to refer to the eagle and thereby personifies the bird. The personification underscores the eagle's extraordinariness in comparison to other birds. The poet uses suggestive adjectives such as crooked and lonely, azure and wrinkled, which will be analyzed further later. The poet also makes liberal use of visual and auditory images in this poem. In the first stanza, the reader sees the eagle outlined against a brilliant blue sky, and in the next he sees the sea rippling below and the eagle shooting down from its perch with great speed. Through his selection of the word azure to describe the color of the sky, the poet achieves multiple ends. First of all, it helps to create a picture of a beautiful blue sky. At the same time, it also allocates the eagle and people like the eagle royal or aristocratic status. The repeated use of k sound in the first line of the first stanza reminds one of the lonely echoing call made by the eagle riding the thermal air currents high up in the impossibly blue summer sky. The long, lazy vowel sounds abundant in the first stanza, especially in the second line, further adds to the peacefulness of the setting described in the first stanza. However, the tone becomes more charged with pent-up energy in the next stanza due to the use of shorter vowel sounds indicating an imminent change. The poet also makes liberal use of inversion in this poem. By inverting the last line of the first stanza, I quote, "Ringed with azure world he stands," end quote, the poet highlights a powerful visual image of the territory of the bird. In the first line of the second stanza, the poet uses inversion once again. I quote, "The wrinkled sea beneath him crows," end quote, to maintain the rhyming scheme. Similarly, the poet uses inversion in the last line of the poem. I quote, "And like a thunderbolt he falls," end quote, for two reasons. Firstly, to maintain the rhyming scheme. Secondly, to highlight the power and speed of the eagle. Next, looking at the thematic aspects of the poem, taken as a whole, the entire poem could be read as a metaphor of A, the operations of power, B, operations of divine will, indirectly and directly, C, the immorality of nature. When reading eagle as a statement on operations of power, it tells us that higher up one is, lonelier or more solitary one shall be. One has to be ever vigilant of people who might catch one unawares and topple one from one's seat of power, and therefore one should be ever ready to strike mercilessly if one is to maintain one's power. In the first line of the second stanza of the poem, I quote, "The wrinkled sea beneath him crows," end quote, one might say that the poet offers a glimpse into the minds of powerful people, the way they look at those who are their subordinates. It also can be read as an insight into the obsequious ways in which those without power often behaves in front of those who are socially and politically superior. In the wild, the weak is the food of the powerful. Therefore, the eagle who watches from its lofty perch comes down fast to catch the weak prey as soon as he sees it. At another level, one might say that despite the gap those who are with socio-political power try to maintain between themselves and those who are their inferiors, their survival depends on the masses. However, the use of the word fall in the last line possibly adds another twist to the reading of the poem. Sometimes the powerful, in attacking the powers, bring about their own downfall. In addition, those who read the top position socioeconomically spend the rest of their lives trying to maintain what they have achieved. The eagle clasped the crag with crooked hands. The word clasp refers to the physical and mental power required to stay in power once one has reached the crag. One might have to engage in dealings that require crooked hands. The term crooked might be a reference to dishonesty. The eagle, unlike like birds like ducks, pelicans, cranes that live in vast flocks, is a solitary creature. However, in the poem, the poet specifically uses the term lonely instead of solitary, putting a negative slant to the state of the eagle's mind. Moving on to the possible second theme of the poem, let's look at the poem as a discussion on the operation of divine will indirectly. Kings and queens of Tennyson's England said to have received their power from God. Therefore, their right to rule is divine. This is an indirect reference to the classical concept of the chain of being, where each living thing has a predetermined state or a place in the overall scheme of life. The power of a king or a queen is inalienable. Yet the power of king or a queen is not limitless. Just as the eagle's freedom of movement is limited by the azure sky, the power of rulers too is limited by the divine will. Therefore, the king and the queens are tools of executing divine will on earth. Many royal emblems, as you know, carry the eagle. Looking at the third possible theme of the poem could also be read as a religious poem discussing direct operations of divine will. The eagle could be read as a direct messenger of God. In many cultures, the eagle is seen as a bird of omen, translating divine will to mankind. The vast blue sky that represents the heaven and God are above him. The wrinkled sea that crawls around the foot of the mountain could be taken as the ugly, sinful serpent or devil or Satan that the eagle strikes at the behest of its Lord and Master, God. As a messenger of God, the eagle is endowed with incomprehensible power and speed. It is ever vigilant, and the moment it sees a sinful serpent beneath, the eagle comes down from its lofty perch in order to attack. Lastly, looking at the eagle as a nature poem, it presents to the reader a stunning picture of a powerful raptor in its home ground. Usually, one is at ease when one is at home. But the eagle, though he is at the very top of his food chain, is unable to let his guard down. He has to be on guard throughout his life. As in nature, all creatures are under constant threat from other creatures who are on the lookout for territory, food, and mates. The eagle also has to be on the lookout for food, as such a great, powerful bird requires a lot of food to stay alive. In nature, only the fittest would survive. As acts of nature are amoral, there is no deliberate cruelty involved in the eagle's act. It does what it does for its survival. Finally, the reader is left with the idea that the eagle does what it does not out of cruelty, but because it is what it is designed to do. Hence, one might say that Tennyson is trying to help the reader to understand or even to justify the behavior of people like the eagle. Before we wind up, I would like to leave you with some questions to ponder on. At a surface level, what is this poem about? Where is the eagle? Reading the poem metaphorically, what could the eagle be and the crag? What do you think the poet is suggesting by the use of the word crooked to qualify the hand? What does the poet achieve by using inversion in the last line of the first stanza? Would the meaning of the poem be different if the poet had used solitary instead of lonely in the second line of the first stanza? What do you think the wrinkled sea stand for? What is suggested by the adjective wrinkled? Why do you think the eagle has to leave behind a mountain wall? The poet uses a simile in the last line. Do you think it is effective? Why do you think so? The poet uses personification and anthropomorphism in the poem extensively. Why do you think the poet does that? With that, we come to the end of the analysis of the poem. Let's meet in another discussion of another poem.